red button.
Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct, yeah, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. It didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Fully Human Trinity Podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm joined with my co-host, Jess-Esther, and we have a guest that we want to welcome to the Fully Human Trinity Podcast. That's really been a connecting point in our lives. We want to welcome to the Fully Human Trinity Podcast, Mike Murphy. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Good to see you guys again.
Great to see you, Mike.
Great to see you as well, Mike. Mike is the reason why Jess and I met. And we're looking forward to unpacking that story today. But before we do, Jess, you know how we normally get things started. What's your spiritual energy number from 0 being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome in the moment?
I'm vibrating at a 10.
I join you. I'm vibrating at a 10 as well. How about yourself, Mike? What would you say your spiritual energy number is right here in this moment from 0 life sucks to 10 being life is awesome?
12.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. And one other thing we do, Mike, before we get started with our show, which is really, we believe in setting a container of operating gratitude, a state of gratitude. And so we always start by saying the things we're grateful for to really kind of set the context. And Jess, why don't you walk us into what you're grateful for this morning?
Well, I'm grateful for this day, for this opportunity to come into connection. I'm grateful for my life, for this breath. I'm grateful for this home that's holding me in beautiful, sunny San Diego. I'm grateful for the connections that have been coming into alignment since meeting Mike Murphy. And I'm grateful to be here in this conversation right here and right now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gratitude. And I'm grateful for my life, my health, my ability to see, hear, walk, talk, stand, breathe, have sound mind. I'm grateful for another 24 hours to pursue my purpose. I'm grateful for my problems because through those problems, I see opportunities for growth. I'm grateful for the people who uplift me. And I'm grateful for the infinite possibilities that this day is going to provide. Mike, you want to share your gratitude moment?
Yeah, I'm super grateful for the healing journey that I've been on the last 5 weeks. It's just been profound. And I'm super grateful for my family, especially my children, my grandchildren. And as I told you guys briefly, I'm grateful that I found a partner and someone to operate Mountains of Hope for me so I can stay here and be with my family for a change.
Yay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great to hear, Mike. That's great to hear. You know, I didn't give you a proper introduction, Mike, so let me begin by doing that.
Okay.
And you've been kind of instrumental of being what this movement is about that Jess and I are really building. And so Mike Murphy, you are New York Times bestselling author. You also, I look at as a authentic man who turned his dream into reality. You were able to build a sanctuary, which I call a spiritual sanctuary. You mentioned it as Mountains of Hope. You've written several books. You've changed several people's lives. So you are a person who I would say is truly a life changer in real life and a hero in that context. And I know that most people give you a more intro based on your bio, but I wanted to give you an intro based on the impact that you had in the lives that you shared and people that I built through you as a result of your dream and your vision. And so we want to welcome you to the Fully Human Trinity, Mike Murphy. And again, because of you, Mike, you know, this show came out or has been created as a result of connecting with you. And so I want to share with you initially my connection source, and then Jess is going to share hers, and then we want to get into some questions about you. And everything's based on what we call wreckage to wisdom, where you go through this thunderstorm in your life where you hit rock bottom. And it could be a financial, it could be a health, it could be a relationship, it could be any of those things that put you in a situation where you're forced to either change or die. And that's when you, to me, I call it thunderstorm. And that's where when you do decide to change, significant things happen in your life and you get propelled and you start to achieve a higher level of consciousness. Mine was coming to Baltimore Wreckage and investing in building a conscious community in Baltimore. Built that up after 30 years of having that dream, raised $1 million, was able to buy 50 properties, had families involved, impacting lives. COVID hit, and then that came coming down. And I blame everyone else but me initially. And when I went through the storm and started the storm, I realized and I lost my identity as a result. And that's what spurred this Fully Human movement. And when I went to Mountains of Hope, before I went to Mountains of Hope, I read your book, The Creation Frequency. That's what helped me get through that storm. And it was written in such a way, and I had read other books, The Law of Attraction, Stephen R. Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I consider to be my Bible. Of course, Think and Grow Rich, all these type of books. But yours gave really practical advice and steps. And it was really something that I need to read. And I received it at a time where I was at my most vulnerable. And so that had me follow you for a while. And I was like, this guy is interesting. There's something about him. Then you had an app. I was able to get access to the app. The app put me through an online program, which I took, that was transformational as well, because it had me lay out my intentions and I began to create my intentions, which eventually led to me being able to come to Mountains Hope. So I started following you because of that. So this man's interesting. You say, I'm going to build sanctuary for my wife, Margot, because of which your wreckage was. And I will give you an opportunity to talk more about that. But as a result, you had built Mountains of Hope. And when I found out you had opened it, I reached out to you, and everything I experienced at Mountains of Hope, which was world class, from my initial interaction with your sister and the way she talked to me and how she and I just really build, and she made me feel hurt. You know, it wasn't like someone just at a hotel just taking my information and said, okay, bye. It was more of I'm talking to a human person that was happy to have a conversation with me, that was willing to work with me to get me to Mountains of Hope because she knew what it could do for me. And it was everything that she delivered. So that's my wreckage of wisdom story of how I got in contact with you initially. The top dot, so to speak, was through the Creation Frequency, and which led me to Mountains of Hope.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I also have a similar wreckage to wisdom story in what I was going through when I came to Mountains of Hope. And, you know, I was looking out into my world and connecting with those who were going through a transition or a struggle. As a transition guide, I had a dear friend, Rachel, and she was going through an immense struggle with her cancer journey and invited me into that world. And she was looking for complementary services. She was looking for alternative care on her way to Colombia. And her connection with Mountains of Hope, with you, Mike, was like a true soul-led connection. And so I was fully listening to her when she said, Mike Murphy, and he's got an organization that helps people through this journey, and he's offering this complementary opportunity, which is creation frequency. And that's what got me. And just being able to be near her as she went through that healing at Mountains of Hope, and then witnessing her come through that and be able to have a year of fully living. And then she and I got even closer through that journey. And I was inspired to come to Mountains of Hope to have that experience for myself. And it really fully prepared me for a death I didn't know what was coming.
Yes.
And that was the death of my father that just recently happened. And then in being fully human and holding each other with reciprocity, you know, we never know when we're going to need that hand out. And I quickly became the one reaching my hand up to get that support from Rachel. And she brought me into her space. And during that time, she really went deep into another wreckage moment where she was coming back into a new level of intensity. And really, our journey together has been so profound that now she and I are fully connected and moving forward, and in this circle here with King, and coming back to you, Mike, where it all began and the creation frequency that pulled us all together. So I am like deeply, humbly grateful for the journey and for everything I'm learning in having this connection.
Yeah, life is a trip, isn't it? And it reminds me of a movie. I think it was called Silver Linings Playbook or something like that. But there's a silver lining in every tragedy. We just have to stay present, and it will appear, because that's the way life works. It's duality, and so it's good and evil. But through every tragedy, there's going to be a triumph if we can just stay with it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Mike, you've been on Larry King Live for your books. You've been interviewed, you've been talking on stage to a lot of people, but I'm curious to talk about Wreckage to Wisdom. What has been your Wreckage to Wisdom story you would want to share with individuals that kind of help put you on the track of creation frequency and vibrating at that space to understand that?
Well, I've had a lot of, I feel like I've had a half a dozen different lifetimes, but I grew up with an alcoholic father in a very difficult home, and it was so painful that at 14 years old, I got on a bus in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I got off 100 miles south in Lexington, Kentucky. I mean, that's how much pain I was in. And I became a habitual runaway, habitual juvenile delinquent, getting arrested. And then I found someone not very intelligent that married me at 21. And my daughter was born on my 23rd birthday, and I had a drinking problem, and I didn't have a job, and I'm living with her parents and her 5 siblings and my new baby. And I did what I always did. I ran away. I looked in the mirror one day. I said, "Yeah, man, you're a total loser," which didn't really bother me. But everybody in the family knew I was total, and that humiliated me. So I just left. I didn't have a car. I took one of their cars. I went and partied for a week and then called up, said, "Okay, I'm ready to come home now." Well, unlike my parents, she said, "I'll pass on that." And so by the grace of God, I ended up in a 12-step program the next day, and I found a little hope. And I struggled my way through that. And there was a guy in there who said, "I've never met anybody as messed up as you, but I might know somebody that can help you." And he introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Doug Fitzgerald. And I went to his house. He said, "Mike, you come here 1 hour a week for 7 weeks. I promise you'll get everything you want in your life." And okay, but it's $50 an hour. And I didn't have 50 cents, but fortunately those days we had checkbooks, so we could write a check and then worry about it later. And so he taught me what I call the creation frequency now. And I think, it's manifestations, law of attraction, but the uniqueness is what he taught me is to put yourself in a self-hypnotic trance, which is theta brainwave, which we're in from the last 3 months in the womb until about 7 or 8. And that's when we're programmed. So we have to unprogram all that stuff. So we can do that as adults now. We get into that state, and then the power of sound. And I think, in the Bible it says God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. He spoke this into existence. And, everything is energy, vibration, and frequency. And sound is one of the most powerful because it goes into the field of infinite possibilities where it links up with like-minded thoughts and energies and things appear. It's just a faster, easier way to manifest. And so we worked out 6 intentions. Number 1, he said, "What do you want most in your life?" I said, "I want to reunite with my wife and my daughter." She is now 2 years old. My ex-wife hates my guts. And so he goes, "Okay, let's ride it." But he said, "Listen, there's no difference between imagination and reality. So we're going to ride it as if it already exists." So I start writing. Lisa and I are so happily married. Our daughter, Michelle, thrives. And I'm thinking, man, this is weird. This is strange. But I just got a little glimmer of hope, and I kept going. And, at the end of 6 weeks, we had 6 intentions. And week 7 was the magic sauce. We sit in his kitchen table. He brought out a boom box. He put in theta brainwave music. He handed me a microphone attached to a tape recorder with a black cassette. And then he handed me a relaxation script to help me get into that self-hypnotic trance. And then I read my 6 intentions. And I read my relaxation script to 6. And I left there 7 weeks later, $350 poor, with a tape with the recordings. And he said, now here's the important thing. When you're first awake, you're coming out of delta, theta, alpha. So you need to listen right away. And at night, same thing. You're going from beta to alpha to theta. So listen last thing. And I wasn't religious with listening to it. But guess what? One of the intentions was to own my own business. Now I'm $60,000 in debt. I have no credit but bad credit. I'm living on someone's couch. And 4 months later, I'm a partner in my own restaurant. And 2 years later, she calls me up and asks me to take her to a Christmas party. She didn't have a date. We get remarried. We have 3 more beautiful children. I'm a car salesman. I manifest owning dealerships. I become very wealthy, very successful. And it works. And, it really works. But like we say in the 12, it works if you work it, and most people, I've had so many people say, oh, Mike, I tried it for 5 days and nothing happened. And it's okay. All right. But, we got to stay with this stuff and have faith and patience and ask God and let go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I listened to that story, and I remember reading that in the Creation Frequency as well, and I forgot just how much seeds you planted in my mind, because I've created a similar program called the 108-Day Journey that I'm on, because I've learned that it takes 6 months to really bring forth a transformation. Yeah. And one of the transformation I wanted to do was I had to find a new identity. Because like I said, I literally lost my identity as a result of what happened in Baltimore. And what I mean by that is I was raised believing my identity was my race. And I built this whole movement to empower my people and my race. And again, I had reached some level of success with it. 30 years in the making of it, COVID hits, and then all that solidarity of shared. But what I believe you can build a movement on shared trauma, you can't, because when COVID hit, all the Black power and Black love went out the window, and I was there left by myself with all 50 houses, and investors wanting their money back, and now all these people are let down, and so having to try to navigate my way back through that, like you said, social capital ruin, financial capital ruin, lawsuits, and then reading your book and then reading what you had to go through and what you came from, made me say, oh, well, maybe that's a lesson there, right? Yeah. And then my mom died, which allowed me to go to Mountains of Hope. That was her caregiver before. And when I went there, I remember my first day, I'm sitting there, and Mike, this is something I never shared with you before. I'll share this with you. Now, my background is engineering. I've been in computers since I was 22 years old. I was one of the first Black people in computers back in 1998. And I was always the only Black in the room most of my life, most of my career. And I was known. I felt that way. It was the energy about it. So I was really headed into my race as well. But when I went to Mountains of Hope, it was the first time that I was the only Black person. I never thought about that. That thought never entered my mind. And I went there with the intentionality to say, I said, I'll do some of the bed and breakfast type things. I may have breakfast with folks, but I'm not having lunch and dinner. I'm not going to be that engaging. And I found myself engaging every single day, every single lunch, breakfast, dinner, conversations. Again, the food was delicious, the environment. It just was the perfect place to heal. And I felt healed from that. And I just want to say now, within that context, what time would you felt along your journey that you feel that you had healing, where you saw a significant shift in the way you were thinking before and now the way you're thinking differently now?
I'll be honest, I'm always healing, it's a very toxic world out there today, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And we have to guard our mind. We have to guard our heart. And it's easy to fall into ruts or bad habits. In my case, recently, I building Mountains of Hope became an obsession almost. And then it became an unhealthy obsession. And I didn't plan it well. I'm shocked at the end result, but I went way too fast. I didn't learn the language. I didn't learn the laws, and it was just very, very stressful. And I
Mhm.
was in a stressful relationship. And so you get into that fight or flight mode, you're going to do things to get out of that are probably more lower chakra habits than higher chakra
Mhm.
habits.
Mhm.
And thank God, I mean, I just had to take a pause, and I had to come home to my family, and I had to work on me and my health and my mental wellness and my emotional, because I burnt out. And that happens. Everybody's burnt out
Yeah.
today. I mean, everybody's, it's crazy, we don't get time off now because the texting and emails, and it's 24/7. I have a commitment now. This thing and my iPads, 8 to 6. That's it. Okay. I'm sorry, world, but I have to take care of myself. And if we don't, boy,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get run over in this world right now. And I see a significant shift actually happening. And the shift is going to be super positive for some and not so good for others. So I think it's really, really important, that we get in touch with who we really are. And you mentioned being Black, right? Listen, we're not our bodies. We're not our thoughts. We are eternal, timeless consciousness, and we are spirit. I'm doing truth is always changing for me. And so I used to think, the soul, and I have a new perspective on the soul now, but it's the spirit. It's the spirit that moves us and drives us. And it's a field of infinite possibility where we tap into the spirit and perhaps the Holy Spirit, and then we just flow with life.
Yeah. Your spirit really speaks many lived experiences, Mike. Like you've been a multimillionaire, and then we come to the table and sit with you and break bread with you at Mountains of Hope and feel this inclusion. You really have from your lived experiences, you bring that spirit to the table. And it's just that creation frequency harmonics that comes from that space.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I've been blessed in so many ways. It's laughable. Okay. I have more flaws than probably anybody. I've probably made more mistakes than 95% of people watching it, but I've also probably done a lot of good more than 95% of people. So
Yeah.
that's it's almost like a bipolar existence. But what I'm experiencing now is so profound. You know, Jesus talks about the peace that passes all understanding. And it's really becoming congruent. Maslow talks about, getting into the higher self out of the low. Once you got what you need, then you need to expand into consciousness. And wow, if people could get this, it's freedom. I have had no fear of death probably forever, but definitely after watching my wife pass and assisting her, definitely no fear. In fact, I was looking forward to it. I really didn't care about being here in body. I would have preferred to have left, but I had this because of the Love for Margot Foundation that precluded the Mountains of Hope. That's the women that gave me the courage. That's the woman that said, "Hey, man, you got to do something." Okay. And so but I've been blessed so many times, and continue to be blessed, because I'm open to it. And I ask for wisdom, and I believe in it. So it's that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the reflection and the common thread that we have here is that is what I identify as fully human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for King to actually be able to bring voice to it.
Yeah.
To say, when I sat at that table, I was seen and heard. I actually remember King's voice the first time we sat down. He was like, oh, like we're all going to eat together. And then he goes, oh, we're going to break bread. And that meant something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, the community there and the experience there is, well, first of all, I saw so many people heal, so many people you would never think would heal. And there's a difference between being cured and healing, right?
Mhm.
And so what I saw, listen, we're really good at getting the toxicity, the heavy metals, the parasite out of the body. We're really good at that. And we're really, really good at the nutrition. We grow 120 different fruits and vegetables in the purest soil, no fertilizers, no chemicals. And we're really, really good with working with the mindset, the limiting beliefs. And we try to gently nudge people out of their head and back into their heart. And we're good at, healing that, childhood trauma, shadow work, whatever, and getting people to live from here and open that heal. But the other powerful thing that I saw is people connected to their spirit. And because I saw this quote the other day, just really resonated. It said that we don't thrive in nature, we are nature. And the beauty of mountains, those 20, the whole Andes Mountains, and the perfect weather, and that's what I think people, even they might not realize it, but I saw it happening,
Yes.
and because you unplug from all this insanity that we're kind of around right now, and you get back into here, and that's where the healing takes place. That's where the miracle takes place. Because I also believe that there's a little spark of God in each and every one, or whoever created this, whatever you want to call that. And so that's the power for me.
Yeah. It almost sounds like public medicine. Like all these connections, it's understanding that we are the nature and that we're in connection with nature, and we're in connection with all these beings who are also nature. And so that's the medicine. It's like we are the medicine and we are creating this regenerative flow.
And you mentioned your experience with Rachel and now King. There's so many people now in that community, and it's just. And we treat the whole organism, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. And here in the West, it's kind of embarrassing, actually.
Mike, I want to speak to a little bit about that as well, because I look at everything, as it comes from perspectives. And as I said before, you truly changed my life. It's been 3 main, I call transitions in my life that I can think of. Each have come from a storm, but this last transition I'm in now, I call myself the fourth quarter of my life.
There you go.
That I'm seeing myself as fully human. And that's a major shift from spending 35 years where my identity was my race, because I didn't graduate from high school. And reading Malcolm X's autobiography gave me purpose. So race was baked in there. And I really took that on as identity. And now shifting to the identity of being fully human, as Jess said, and realizing, because we agreed within the fully human movement, and you have planted seeds, there's 4 agreements, which is number 1, energy is everything and everything is energy. Number 2, energy is in a constant state of motions, either increase or decrease. Number 3, we focus on the increase. And number 4, we identify as fully human, not by race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, culture, trauma, or any of these divisive things the construct tells us that separates us. And in being that way, to your point, and it's funny you talked about harmony and everything. So since I've been on this journey and writing about it, I'm writing a book called Think and Grow Free. I'm talking, you let yourself get creative liberation. I've created songs. You've heard as the intro, one of the songs, Race is Alive. Ironically, Jess and I, being from a skin suit context, people see black man, white woman. But when they hear us, they see 2 energy beings coming together.
Are you guys a couple now?
No. Well, a couple in a partnership of building a co-creator.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, we get the joke. But here's what I'm curious about, and this why, because Jess and I both have our networks that we kind of build together to form this fully human movement. I have the conscious business folks, conscious capitalism, the folks who are the triple bottom liners, the business people who have a higher purpose. She brings in the spiritually awakened people. But my question for you, for my network of folks who will be in line with this, you talked about, and you kind of gloss over it every time, your success with Volkswagen and how you generate your first couple of millions. I'm just curious, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I really want to get the total picture of your business genius as how you were able to do those things.
Well, I want to do this for young people and for people that, don't think there's hope out there. So I started as a car salesman, right? And And what I would do is on my day off, I would go and without getting paid, I'd go in and learn the finance job. Okay. And so one day, a couple months later, the guy doesn't show up. They say, Murphy, can you do it? Yeah, I do 15 deals. I'm the new finance guy. Well, now when on my day off, I'm going in and learning the sales manager job and then the general sales manager. And then I'm a general salesman. And then I run into the owner at the National Automobile Dealers Association, workshop or seminar or the whatever conference. And he says, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm going to be a dealer. This is where dealers are. I have to learn what they do. Right. And I got very, very good at, well, I was a hard worker and I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do nothing. And maybe I just was lucky, I guess, and found the right opportunities. And people say, hey, man, a guy calls me up. He says, hey, my dealership's in bankruptcy. If you get us out, I'll give you 25%. Okay. And I probably took a 30% pay cut to go do that, but I got him out of bankruptcy. Now I got ownership and now I'm a dealer of record with General Motors. And then another guy calls and another guy calls. And then finally I found a guy, the first 25% things didn't work out too good because when you're a minority owner, you don't have a lot of leverage. But the next guy says, Mike, come on, I'll give you 25%. I go, and he had a couple, I said, no, Bill, I'm 0 for 2, 25%. He goes, okay, find one. We'll go 50-50. And so, but honest to God, I work hard. I always treated their money better than I would treat my own money. I always worked harder for them than I would have worked for myself. I always gave twice as much as they expected. And I'll tell you why. When I was 10 or 11 years old, I had a tough father, okay? And so he's hung over watching baseball or whatever, and he goes, go clean the garage. Well, I'm not in the best mood, so I do a half-assed job cleaning the garage. He comes out to, God damn it, if you're going to do something, you do it right or you don't do it all. But you know what? That was the greatest gift I was ever given. And so that's how that principle, and if you have that principle, and also, I left school in the 8th grade. And what's fascinating to me about that is nobody loves to learn more than me. But I don't want to learn their stuff, okay? And so I was reading 3-4 books a week almost, and going to from Zig Ziglar to studying Norman Vincent Peale and Wayne Dyer, and I kept elevating and evolving, from this to this and all the sales guys. So it's out there, but you got to want it. And for me, I was never driven by money. I was always driven by pride. And so I want to be the best version of myself, but I want to be successful and that make you successful. I'm going to be successful. And I see a lot of people have that in reverse nowadays. They want. And okay, but I'm coaching my son right now, who just took over a really difficult dealership to turn around. And I'm saying, listen, Chris, the guy's not making money. So, and he buy another, so he goes, give me a new pay plan. I said, Chris, you can't ask for any more money because you're not going to work any more hours, but get a percentage of the profits. And so we got to give to get, and the world is kind of selfish, in my opinion.
Oh, I just love that you said we have to give to get. That is like the foundation of Fully Human.
And I'll add one more thing, which is my favorite thing is you can't outgive God. There's a verse in the Bible, and I can't quote exactly, but it's pushed down, running over, blah, 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 blah. You can't outgive God, I swear.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I love, Mike, is that you're speaking to a younger audience.
Good.
You're saying, I want the younger generation to hear this. Yeah. And I hear that this is more than like self-development. This isn't just like the grit or the willing your energy that you got, because you did just share a story previous to this that you understood that there was a foundation of emotional, physical, and spiritual energy that comes as the foundation prior to then putting those actions into play.
You guys remember Julian, the young kid that worked at Mountains?
Yes, absolutely.
So I left there maybe a month or so ago, and I had to fire him for various reasons. And I said, here's the deal, dude. You go to Alcoholics Anonymous, you go to one meeting every day for 90 days, okay, and you can have your job. And he just sent me a beautiful text just an hour ago saying, okay, I'm doing it, and I'll be back at the end of August. And, there's this thing called tough love, but I think people take it too far and they abandon their children. But with that kid, I had no choice, but I gave him a way out. I said, listen, you're done. but here's a way back. And so, and I see parents, I've dealt with so many people with addiction. I've lost so many kids on my base for these opiates, right? But sometimes the parents, the parents can't take it anymore and they give up, and you can't, there's tough love to a point, but you can't disengage. For me personally, even building Mount Hope, I probably quit 100 times, but I never gave up. You get frustrated, but I never.
Mike, what's interesting is that you talk about how you were able to leverage your knowledge. I call it leverage your knowledge, where you came as a salesman, learned to be a general manager. Now you put yourself as dealer conferences to learn how to be a dealer, and you really kind of manifested those things in your life at each stage of that. But also, and I don't know if you give yourself enough credit about this, is that, see, I'm a connector. I'm a system engineer. I study humans. I understand how to build networks and connections, and I'm very analytical in that process. So when I saw how at Mountains of Hope, you were able to build, and this was so impressive to me. And this is where I hear a lot of people in the conscious business world talk, but never deliver on. They have these visions of sanctuaries they want to build and how they treat their employees and how to hire people, right? And make sure that everybody benefits and all the stakeholders thrive.
Yeah.
And that's just performative. When I came to Mountains of Hope, not only were you in another country, but you had built a sanctuary and where everybody who I interacted with from the staff was happy. Yeah. And I felt the energy and the jobs you created and the people you were able to put to work. And I just felt that such intentionality was there. And to me, I don't think you can just really get that through management. Like, that's a leadership is where I'm going with that. Management can come up with KPIs and all the kind of metrics, but leadership is where you get people to buy into that and actually follow through and live in that kind of space.
Yeah. And that story of Julian is a really great example.
Yeah. You said I don't give myself enough credit. I really don't believe I just feel I'm blessed, and this stuff just shows up in my life. And I will tell you this, that, when I was running, I started in a restaurant business for 10 years, and then 40 in the car dealership, and then building Mountains Hope. And so, but here's the way I would tell everybody: I don't care if you're the guy washing the cars. I don't care if you're the office manager. We're all the same. I work for you. Okay, I'm here for you. And so when you have that kind of attitude, and I want you to make more money, okay? And because when people get a taste of pride, that's what happens there. They get a taste of pride. They see people like you come there. They see what's going on. They see the healing, and they feel good. I mean, it's just a beautiful experience. And we're dealing with, healing, which is a deep subject. And so, and of course, they work in a beautiful place, and and we give them all kinds of extra benefits. And so that's, I don't believe I'm better than anybody on this planet. Okay. So I mean, to me, we're all the same. We're all connected. And the better you do, the better I'm going to do. But also, if you're suffering, I'm suffering. I can control my individual consciousness, but there's a collective consciousness that we're all tied into. Eckhart Tolle called it the pain body, and then the collective pain body, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And listen, man, and one of my favorite teachers was Byron Katie. And she said, I only keep doing this work because as one person thinks they're suffering, which they're just thinking it, and they can change that. But but there's so much suffering in today's world. And so that's what drives me, honestly.
Yeah.
You transfer wreckage to wisdom. So Jess, it specializes in doing grief work. Mm-hmm. So Jess, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the grief work you're doing and how that fits in what Mike has shown his emergence throughout life.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, you really brought together the beautiful space of healing. I think anytime that you create a healing center, that's the magnet, right? Is who actually needs healing? Oh, those who are in suffering. And what does suffering need? It needs safe spaces to be held for that grief to process.
Yes.
I know that's so true for myself as I've been guiding processes of loss and understanding that grief is something that we don't get through, that grief is something we carry And it's something that we build a relationship with, and it's something that we expand with, so that we can hold our grief, that tether to that love connection, to that love for Margot that is always there, and that like inspires the gratitude. It inspires the life. It inspires the movement forward. And so for me to just step into that space, that magnet, and do that work for myself, I feel like it was that detox, that being loved, that being held, that drinking the cacao, the having the time by myself to actually come out of the construct. I feel like that was my own preparation to then be able to sit more deeply in spaces of grief and not try to fix or change it, but actually just open and keep opening. And the more I open, it feels like this drain of like, oh, now it can flow. Now the love can come through. And then now I feel that love connection actually rinsing over and washing through and creating this beautiful clearing that is like what I see now in walking my path with grief, is that I'm seeing the beautiful life and heart that my dad had, and his legacy and his love for me is well beyond the moment of death or the loss. And I see that for Rachel, because I watched her come right down to this moment where there was a healthcare worker who just put into the field this suffering, like this is the end, this is as far as you go, and settle that. And for Rachel to have this understanding, I can sit with that and I can open up more to that and show me hope, show me signs of life, and then allow that nurturing to just blossom and see this new life coming through her, is then this like normalization of like, we're not as broken as we think. You know, we go through these storms to help recalibrate our energy, and we have each other to go through that. So that's really what I'm sensing now as a tender of grief, is that to just like normalize, we're going to go through these crises and we're going to make it through and we're going to live again. And whether that means we lose the skin suit or not, like that is the process, and we don't need to keep doing it alone.
Yeah, grief, man. It's my grief was so deep I didn't think I would ever get through it. And my, my kids had me on like suicide watch. And ironically, I had to pack up right after my wife died and move into the house we bought for her. And I couldn't even touch anything that reminded them the kids would put it in a plastic thing and then they'd seal it. And then I have to write on it, open soon, I hope. Even when I went to a new house, I had to put it in the garage under lock and key. I mean, it was like I don't know how to survive. And what's interesting is, I was only with Margot 10 years, and now I've been with her 15 additional years in spirit, which, is even more beautiful because there's no fighting. And so, she told me 100 or more times, Mike, you need to learn to be vulnerable. What are you talking about? Okay. The day I became vulnerable was the day she died. I became so vulnerable and so defenseless that back in those days, I say it's as if God could come in, slice open my heart and remove all the arrogance, self-centeredness and bullshit and replace it with love. And that's what happened. I mean, I walked around with this big, open, broken heart and nowhere near the ground for many, many years. And, probably had a lot to do with the creation of Love from Margot Foundation. And so I tell people, listen, I get it, man. You lost someone and you're devastated, you're grieving. And I got good news and I got bad news. And the bad news is that the life will never be the same. Christmas will never be the same. Birthday will never be the same. But if you go through it, if you can stay sober and go through it, because some people medicate and they become bitter and they never get the gift. And if you can go through it, you're never going to be the same. You're going to be so much bigger, so much better, so more compassionate, so much more loving. But it's a son of a bitch to go through. Okay. And, Rumi said that the grief can be the garden of compassion, and that's what it is. But you got to go through it. And going through it's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that lived experience definitely shows at the Mountains of Hope, because when I got there, like that soil had already been cultivated by you and by Margot.
For sure.
And unbeknownst to you, Mike, well, you know this part, that when you come there, it's a tradition that you have a labyrinth out front of the place. And it's set up and just structured where you walk through the labyrinth. Now, I had never experienced a labyrinth, so that whole thing was new to me. And I remember her explaining to me what's required, and I'm thinking like, okay, you walk to the center and then you just walk back out. I didn't realize you walk the path back out, right? You can't step over a stone. Yeah. And that intentionality, as you know, of walking through it, it takes roughly about anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes. You're not timing it, but you do it your own journey. And what moved me was Pam and Angie, both agreed to walk the journey with me in addition to Jess. And I didn't really know them at all. Mm-hmm. But they were willing to walk that patient path behind me for at least 25, 30 minutes of solitude and quietness, and had that moment with me. Mm-hmm. And they're both dealing with their own thunderstorm, right? So it's not like they were there and they're just on vacation. Right. They're there dealing with their grief, their thunderstorm. They were able to put that aside, share that moment of walking through the labyrinth with me, and then walk back out with me, which was really about 45 minutes in total silence and just sharing that connectedness, that quantum entanglement. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, that all the intentionality I experienced there, you led there, or you as a leader brought there. But I'm curious, because you talked about the love of Margot Foundation. That's why I'll lead to this question. What inspired you to want to say, I'm going to create a foundation, and then start doing some of the work you were doing with the women in Oakland and helping them, just not from a profit standpoint, but just really living that service mindset?
Yeah, it was maybe she'd only been gone 3 or 4 weeks, and a good friend of mine calls me up and he said, "Hey, Mike, my sister-in-law is moving down here from, I think it was Montana or Wyoming. She has stage 4 breast cancer. She's 38, the same age that Margot passed at, and she has 3 children. Can you help her find an oncologist?" And so Margot and I only spent the last month or 2 of her life in Northern California. And so our oncologist was fairly new. And so I took her there, and of course he ordered a bunch of tests, which she just had 2 weeks ago in Wyoming, but that's another subject. And so I went with her. I had nothing to do because I was a full-time caretaker. So, I mean, let's go. And so we put a port in her chest and this and that, and she was African-American. And I just noticed that they treated her different than they treated us and Margot, and either talked down to her, over her, and made me feel very uncomfortable, but I was in no position to say anything. I just noticed. And so then we get back to the oncologist 2 weeks later, and he says, "Amanda, the best protocol to extend your life are these 3 chemotherapies simultaneously. Unfortunately, your insurance will only pay for 1, so that's all I can give you." I was flabbergasted. I didn't know the world worked like that, honest to God. And I said, "Here's my credit card. You just give her whatever she needs." And that was the seed that started percolating for the Love for Margot Foundation. And then I met another woman, 33 years old, named Renee, living alone in San Francisco because she was estranged from her sister and her mother at the time. And she said, "Mike, all I ask is you don't let me die alone in a hospital." And Renee almost bankrupted me because her breast cancer had metastasized to her brain, which is completely different from lungs and bone. Lungs, you know when they're going. Brain, you don't know. But I didn't know that. So she go, "Hey, we're like, I think I need some at-home care." So I go, "Okay, let's start overnight," which was 12 hours and was probably, $400. And then a couple of weeks later, we need round the clock. And that was $800 a day, and she's not dying. And I go over there a couple of weeks later, and she's out buying a TV. and it was stressful because I didn't have any money, honestly. I mean, we just gone through the Great Recession and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was difficult. Even when I went to start the foundation, the lawyer said, "How much you want to fund it with?" I don't even know how much I have. And so because I've been with Margot for some. And But anyway, she passed quickly after. And so those two women, I mean, it just actually I'd already started the Love for Margot Foundation because of Amanda, and then Renee was the first client. And so, boy, I have to tell you, and what somebody, probably a 3-letter agency, has done to the African American community is tragic. So I'm working with mostly Black women, and it was a really bad idea, but my idea was I would give them a financial grant to help them get through treatment, right? Because they don't have money to begin with. Now they can't work. Now their expenses gone up. So I would give them $1,000 a month for 5 months. But they had to, first they have to come meet me. I have to know their story. I want to know if they have emotional support. I want to know what's going on. And then every month they come to get their check, and I could follow their case. I could support them. And let me tell you, in the African American community, most of these women are raising their grandchildren because their children are hooked on crack cocaine or worse. But the stories, and they touched my heart, and the courage. And then I started doing it in Palm Desert, California, undocumented Mexicans mostly, and they come to clean our hotel rooms and pick our produce and work on our golf courses, and they're exposed to 151 known chemicals that cause breast cancer. And so when they get them in the great state of California, it gives them 18 months of insurance, just enough time for that guy to put a hole in their chest filled with poison, just enough that guy can cut off 1 or 2 breasts, and enough for that guy to burn them. And so, and then now I'm involved, right? And so it was getting very frustrating. And so now I start buying water purifiers, juicing machines, and those women down there, now they have husbands, they have family. I could tell you so many stories you wouldn't believe me. And so, but now they're inviting me over for tamale. But it was tough work, man. It was tough, and it was a really bad return on investment. I mean, because they get sicker and sicker. I mean, it's a never-ending thing, right? And so, but I learned so much. And one woman went natural, and she healed. And many of the women say, "Boy, I wish I didn't have to do this. I'd rather go natural." But the insurance only pays for that, right? So that planted the seed for the Mountains Folk.
Mm.
That's a powerful story, and as you said, I just want to let you know this, Mike, in this moment. You talked about creating the Love for Margot Foundation, create Mountains of Hope. You talked about your dealerships. These are businesses that you created with intention directly. But I just want to let you know what's been created as a result of you and the connections that we've made. So I had an idea of the Fully Human movement as a result of going through my journey, as I've said before. I connect with Jess at Mountains of Hope. Jess and I were looking for ways to connect. We've gone through several different revisions of that, but we say committed to figure out what it's going to take. And then we both felt that we're on this journey together of being fully human, and that she felt natural in that space and the skills that she brings. Then she introduced me to Rachel. Rachel has a nonprofit called God is Tears. Yeah. So we decided we're going to create a campaign to help raise money through the law service you talked about for deserving soul. What makes Rachel deserving is because even in her health crisis that she's dealing with, her goal is, how do I help others? Yeah. So she's creating an organization called God is Tears. Yeah. Just because of what she's gone through in her storms, she decides she wants to create an organization called Trinity Peak Foundation that specializes in grief. And so now all of us are working together, along with Melissa, you met at Mountains of Hope, that we've been building with. Still keep in touch with Denise at Mountains of Hope that you've known. And so all these people we've had interactions with around co-creating, and you were the nucleus of that. You were the genesis where all that. So I just want to make sure that you understand this. If no one else says this to you, that if you quantify your success only through financial metrics and say, I failed with Mountains of Hope, that's a narrative you decide to choose. Yeah. But the true narrative is the quantified of social capital and impact of love, energy that you created. That is unquantifiable and invaluable. Yeah.
And we can all thank Margot for that, because she taught me how to love. She loved me how to love myself. And I honestly believe she was first of all, I believe we've been together in previous lives, and she taught me what love is.
I love how you scooted your computer over, and then that little heart stuck out right next to you.
Yeah, I see it as well. And see, and Mike, you've done this throughout my entire time I was able to be in your presence. I remember, I went there for a week, and you were open to working with me and let me stay there for 2 additional weeks. And I was able, and that I needed that. I didn't realize I needed that. I had to make adjustments in my life to plan for that, because again, I hadn't planned for that, but it was exactly what I needed, because it gave me a chance to know Jess more, better. It gave me a chance to know deeper relationships, and I actually lost weight while I was there. I ate more than I ever ate. I don't know.
Have you kept it off?
No, I didn't keep it off, which makes me want to go back. That's why I keep asking you, Mike, can I go back? Because
I think there's some organic vegetables not far from you.
well, it was the ideal of having it prepared and the way it's prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
It was an art. I mean, we actually we didn't just break bread together. It was an experience.
Yeah. We had a great chef.
And we get a great chef. And so that's what I'm saying. The total experience was something for someone like myself coming through that wreckage to experience that. That's what that energy, that's the feelings that Jess and I are working to create within the Fully Human movement.
Yeah.
I've been able to meet people where they are, whether you're dealing with grief, whether you're dealing with health crisis. But if you see yourself as fully human first, so that we don't get into these conversations of fighting over political ideology and racial ideology and all these things that's happening in the world, but see each other as energy and see each other as love, that's the magic. And you help create that you create that model that we follow.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're all one. So
yeah, one way that you demonstrate that, which Rachel will say was her biggest highlight of being at Mountains of Hope, and I've heard it from several people, is that you have created this coherent healing that is the creation frequency. Yeah. And you invite everyone to the circle, regardless if they're in the middle of a shift or if they're off shift or if they're out in the garden or whatever. Like, call everyone into circle. Yeah. And then for that prayer to come in, you know, that's been what you've been leading, of opening the space up to spirit and then allowing spirit to do the healing. Yeah. And it's such a profound impact. And I know you've talked a little bit about like the impact of prayer and the power of prayer, and you tapped into it just a little bit in our last conversation. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
I think one of the biggest things I did to propel my life, one, I quit drinking. You know, I'm going back in 1928. I was working a dealership, and I had a problem, primarily with cocaine. And I was their top salesman. I worked 3 weeks. I was snort for 3 days. I recovered for 3 days, and I'm still the top guy. And so I can't live like this anymore. So I'll never forget. I go down and I say, and the top guy gets the best car. So I'm driving a Toyota Supra. I say, hey, here's the keys. I'm checking myself in the rehab for a week. If you guys want me when I come back, great. If not, I totally understand. And in one day, I gave up drinking, drugs, smoking, and caffeine for 16 years. Without that, you would not be talking to me right now. We have to get sober to be successful, and in every way. And but only 16 years, I would get up every morning. I sit in the living room, and that we got a bunch of little kids now, and so I like to get up early and have peace. And I would journal, and it was very simple. I would start with gratitude, like you guys started the show. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. And I do too. And I'm writing. Because I want. Tony Robbins said that a life worth living is worth recording. And I have a dear friend who's a pastor of my church, and he said, making a museum of memories for your family, right? So I started gratitude. But here's the power. Please give me wisdom on the following. What to do with this kid? What to do at work? What to do this? How can I fix that? What about this? And 1 year, after doing that about 7 or 8 years, and I used to teach this to my employees as well. And so I just out of curiosity, I just saw my journals the other day. I went back and I highlighted everything that just took care of itself, okay, which was about 80%. And then there was real solutions from the other stuff. Right here, okay, it's electromagnetic. We live in 1% of that frequency. There's other frequencies right here. Like dogs can hear stuff we can't. Other people can see things we can't. Okay. So it's rather how you're tapped into this frequency. There's guides, there's angels, there's the Holy Spirit, there's stuff. I can't swear to this, I can't prove it, but in my heart, I just know it's there. I believe it's there. And even if it's not there, if I believe it, that's a superpower.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, Mike, to your point, as you say this,
let me add one more thing. I
absolutely.
end with love. Thank you, Father. I love you.
A little more
gratitude, wisdom, and love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mike, let me ask you this. This is something I always wanted to try to get to where this came from. And maybe you and Jess to both speak to this. That I noticed that when I was there, 2 people went through a ceremony where you prayed over them and we said a group circle. So kind of talk about the origins of that and what that was.
Well, you know, it comes from Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat I did with him, and they do these healing coherence ceremonies. But I have to tell you, I mean, you know, because he's in a ballroom, 1,500, 2,500 people, right? And so we would do these intimate ones. And I have to tell you, I mean, I have no idea, because I'm leading a guided, we put on heart, mind, healing coherence music, and we put the patient on the floor, and then there's about 15 of us sitting around the patient. And then I lead like a 10-minute guide. I have no idea where it comes from. And it just comes. And then we rub our hands together as much as we can. We put that energy into these people. And boy, the comments that I've received, not from the patient, from our people that work there or other guests that help us with this. And I'll never forget one of the last ones I did was this dear man, Eric, that just struggled so much. And, you know, in hindsight, we never should have brought him there. But like I said, he didn't get cured from cancer, but he healed. Okay. But he was so weak, we couldn't take him to the monastery to do the healing coherence ceremony. So like maybe, you know, 5 or 6 of us went into his room while I was laying on his bed. My God, the energy, the tears, I'll never forget it. And, you know, and so just to tell you the difference between Mountains of Hope, I mean, because Eric had lung cancer. We're 7,000 feet. And man, he was struggling. Okay. And I just felt so bad. Dr. Natalie, who you know, flew all the way, I think it was Portland, Oregon, with him to get him home. And he passed like a month later. And then I had I don't think his wife spoke English, but we had, you know, text message conversation and talk about grief. You know, we've lost 4. We had 40 cancer patients in 2025, and we have 40 other patients with various other diseases, or some people just for detox. And the 4 we lost, it's tough on me, you know. And you know, you mentioned Pam. You know, what a beautiful woman, and losing Todd, and it's tough, you know. But that's life, okay? I mean, there's no one gets out of here alive.
Right.
We never die, by the way, but no one ever stays in their body. Okay, we're all going to leave our body eventually. And so, but the beauty of Mountains Hope, it wasn't about money. It was more like a ministry, right? And
yeah.
So, you know, I think we had a guest. I think it was Lily recently, and she said, "Mike, I've been to a bunch of these, and they run from money. This runs from the heart and love." Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a fully human sanctuary.
Yeah, no, it is. Honestly, this is what hospitals should be like. If you look at pictures of hospitals in Europe and maybe in America, they had sun decks on the roof. Now we're taught the sun's going to kill. Dude, man, the sun is everything, and grounding the Mother Earth is everything. And yeah,
you know, you speak about hospitals should be like. What I had, you know, again growing up. As a Black man, you know, we don't like the medical facility. We don't trust it. And so, and having to go to the doctor as you get older, you're forced to. Mm-hmm. And then when you start going to the doctor and you realize the way they do things, you sit out there, you get there on time, you wait 15 minutes, you finally get a chance, the nurse checks you in, and then she puts her through the protocols, and the doctor spends 5 minutes with you, and then he leaves. Yep. And you go through that whole experience to get 5 minutes of the doctor's time. And he's just reading you off like a checklist. There's no endearing connection. And then when I go to Mountains of Hope, I sit with doctors who talk to me for a whole hour. Yeah. I didn't know I mean, and really listened to me and told me about myself and connected with me and made me feel again seen and heard. You know, I can argue that most people never experience that relationship with a doctor at all.
Okay, let me give you an example. I work with another doctor outside of Mountain Hope, but in Medellin, and she's unbelievable doctor. So anyway, she's got me doing a lot of tests here and a lot of this and a lot of that. And so I have a GP here. He's my friend for 30 years. I'm concierge. I pay him extra on the side for 24/7 access, right? But all I ever go there for now is blood draws. But I just go, hey, look, doc, look at this. What do you think? Boom, 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 boom. Mike, this is over my pay grade. Not a clue. They're not trained. They're not trained about nutrition. They're not trained about energy. It's symptom, prescription, boom. And they never look for parasites. Parasites have killed more humans than all the wars combined, and no one pays attention. So I mean, it's unfortunate, but this started 100 years ago when Rockefeller took over the medicine. Everything else was quackery because he had to sell all his oil. And now we're controlled by big pharma. The third leading cause of death in America, heart disease, 1 out of 2 people, cancer, 1 out of 2. The third leading cause of death is death by doctor and big pharma. It's broken. It's broken. And we spend $5 trillion. I think we rank 47th in the world. And no one has spent we spend $5 trillion. Oh my God.
Well, Mike, again, near the top of the hour, we definitely appreciate your time. We want to give you an opportunity to share this with you, that again, from your creation, your love, your willingness to turn your wreckage into wisdom, you sprung this fully human movement that we're building. And what I left out earlier was that now I actually use AI. My background was technology. I've really leaned heavily in the last 2 years, really into AI and really understanding how to use it as a way to build business and networks. And as a result, I'm able to create these songs. You talk about frequency.
Yeah.
I actually create these songs. You heard a part of it at the beginning, where I'm saying race is a lie. And that's what Jess and I are really building to show folks that we're not saying that race is a lie because we're saying this is just a post-racial world. We're saying race never existed at all. Exactly. And because you believe in that, it's preventing you from being able to make great connections, and it's stopping your creative liberation from growing. And so you talked about what you're building with a prayer for 5 times a day. We love to look at ways that we can continue to keep these connecting dots with you going forward, that we can build and support what you're doing. Because again, we both know how instrumental you've been in our lives and the people's lives that we're building with as well.
Well, whatever I can do to serve you, I'm happy to.
Maybe we could create a song that would be "Cancer is a Lie."
Well, cancer treatment might be a lie. And what is cancer? Okay, all it is I believe that parasites or fungi or mold get into the cell and affect the mitochondria and turn a switch. So now that cancer cell is mutated and refuses to die, and we just got to detox that out of there, and we can heal. So
yeah, it just needs a little grief work, a little emotional support.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
With this movement we're building, we'd love to have you on anytime you want to share your message. We want to contribute with you and spread the word about the prayer for 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so. Can I talk about it real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when Margot was dying, she was terminal. December 1st, 2010, the doctor said, the cancer spread to the lining of your brain. If you do nothing, you have 6 weeks to live, and if you treat it, you have 6 months to live. And so I created a website called Send Margot Love. And somehow I didn't build it, but whoever did, there was a map, and we could show there's people all over the world because they have little dots over this map, right? And the concept was, just give us 5 minutes a day from 2 p.m. to 2:05 p.m. Sign up. They would sign up, and they would pray for her in that time, right? And so my concept now is, listen, I think humanity's got a big challenge ahead of itself, okay? And whoever runs this thing, they got all the power, they got all the money, they bought and paid for everything, and we got it. So we're not going to win with guns, and so I think we need to win with consciousness and love. So I envision that people will sign up for I haven't created it yet, but they sign up for that 5 minutes. But it's not really praying. So I'm going to ask them to just sit quietly for 5 minutes, ideally in nature, see in their mind's eye the world that they want to live in, one of unity and responsibility and integrity and compassion and love, and see it in their mind's eye and feel it in their heart and vibrate at that frequency for 5 minutes. Now, if we get millions of people doing that, consciousness is going to, it's all energy. Tesla said, you want to understand the universe? Energy, vibration, frequency. We get a bunch of people doing that. Believe me, we'll blow this field up. This matrix will explode, and love, we can usher heaven back, or the Garden of Eden back, and heaven back on the earth.
I love it.
Yeah.
But I haven't done it yet. So
I just want to speak to that really quickly, because after my father transitioned, I found myself back in Colombia. And I took a little journey. The paths were open, and I was able to sit with the Mamo family, who is an indigenous family who's been holding the wisdom of our planetary structure through a lot of time and space. And when I sat with them, they shared that same message, Mike.
Listen, I'm going to tell you, we got 1 more minute? So
absolutely.
So I used to talk a lot about the soul. Okay. And so then I've been meditating a lot lately, and, when I grew up Catholic, and so the soul was, and so I believe that there is a soul, and it goes with us. But if you're clean and pure and living in a state of love, it shines so bright that the stars, because maybe it is a star when it leaves here, okay, and it shines. And I think it was Hafiz or something. If you knew the power of the light in you, I mean, blah blah blah. And so, but it can also become dirty. It can also become dark. It can also become lost. Okay, so that's why now I believe in tapping into the spirit, that we're mind, body, heart, and spirit. We have a soul. It's kind of like a scorecard, if you will. But if we can stay clean, the heart, the heart math have measured. I mean, the heart is broadcasting, okay, into the field, and I believe the pineal gland is an antenna for the field to send thoughts, right? And so that's all we are: a receiver and a broadcaster. It's the unseen world. And if the healing is to take place, we can't be looking out here. We have to go within. All the answers are within, but everybody's looking out here. And, I swear, for the first time, I mean, I'm 69 years old. For the first time in my life, I'm not in a relationship, and I don't want to be in a relationship, and I'm happier than I've ever been. Okay. And I'm as freer as I've ever been. And so for me, that's a miracle, honestly.
That's you.
No, I swear to you, but you don't know me. I mean, listen, okay. I mean, me and women have a long history, and my God, am I free? but I mean, it's the spirit, guys. We got the human spirit. This is what we're talking about. You guys it's your human spirit that's connecting all this and making this happen.
Yeah.
Spirit.
Well, it's really interesting, because yesterday we had a beautiful conversation with Rachel and talked about goddess tears. And when King asked Rachel, what's the one ritual, what's the one thing you do every day that actually creates your frequency, she talked about sitting, and just sitting with the flame and being with herself for 5 minutes. So let's just initiate that right now. Let's activate that within the space of human emergence and being fully human together, where we have a place where we can come do that together.
That's the problem. I don't know who said it, Thoreau or somebody said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Believe me, okay? It's not quiet because we got all those noise, but they can't sit in a room for 5 minutes and be still. And
it was Thoreau. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But that's the problem. We got to be able to sit still and on the earth with the sun, and healing will take place. And by the way, and Mountains Hope doesn't heal anybody. Here's what I believe: that something in their environment got them sick, whether physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. And all we've done is creating a healing environment, but they do the work. I mean, we've created an environment. We're there to, and by the way, between the nature, but also the love of our staff, it is part of the healing process there.
And the love of Colombia.
It's a beautiful country. Little island, but it's a beautiful country.
It's a beautiful country. It's beautiful people. And like you said, Mike, your staff, and that's why I said separates you from a lot of the folks I know who are in this conscious capitalism world. Your staff felt they wanted to be there, and you felt served by them. Yeah. I mean, like, I will come out to my room in the morning, and they would automatically say, well, here's your smoothie. based on what I have gotten the previous days, right? They would have a smoothie for me.
Yeah.
They knew I wanted a smoothie. Julian would walk with me around the property because he knew I wanted to walk. He would do that walk with me.
No,
Yeah, that's Rachel's story about Julian, is he would chase her down to walk with her.
No, I mean, you guys are making me want to go back there right now.
Yeah.
I'm starting to miss it.
But you have me missing it. But like I said, Jess and I definitely want to help create a world where what you want to do and get your message out to the world, we want to be co-creators with you in that space.
I appreciate that. Thank
And
you.
if anything you want to share with our listening audience before we wrap up, any closing thoughts, any words of wisdom?
Just one thing that I think people need to understand, because I mean, I see my own family. I mean, the blessing for me, I mean, because I would come home for a week, hey, Dad's here, Grandpa's here, blah, 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 right? But now I've been here, now I'm going deep into my kids and my grandchildren, and there's problems, there's issues, and because everybody wants to be a victim. Okay. You're not a victim. You are a powerful creator. You chose to come into this physical incarnation. You chose what you were going to either do or learn. And so figure it out, get it done, and get out of here. Okay. This is not heaven, ladies and gentlemen. There's a higher frequency to go to if you learn and do what you're supposed to do. That's my intention, when Margot passed, it was a very profound, no doubt about it. But she came to me and she said, listen, they hardly ever allow this, but they're allowing me to stay here and to be your guide. And so I am so blessed that it's beyond reason.
Believe it, I receive that gratitude. Jess, you want to have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to presence Margot to this conversation because I felt her very strongly when I landed at Mountains of Hope, and I was like, oh, we're not doing this alone. This is spirit-led.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.
I felt the presence as well. I mean, I felt your intentionality. I said that if I can describe Mountains of Hope in one word, it was intention. Because I felt the intentionality. Yeah. And then you have a creation frequency, and you teach people intention there. Yeah. So I'm seeing how the seeds and everything worked out. But Mike, like I said, you showed me what a fully human looks like.
I'm very flawed though. Anything you need, a flawed fully human.
We all are.
Well, that's what makes us fully human is we have our flaws, but we grow, we learn, we get wisdom, as you said before, and we don't repeat those same mistakes. But as humans, we're going to make mistakes. That's just part of our journey.
And also your presence also blessed Mountains of Hope. So thank you for that.
Mm.
Well, thank you. And like I said, we're all going to go back hopefully one day. That's the goal. Good. But as we wrap up, again, this is the purpose of the show, is to show you what fully human looks like. Even though Mike hasn't used that term, he's behaved in that way. We hope he uses that term going forward. But we welcome everyone who wants to be more fully human. Thank you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
A ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie. A script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yes. Yeah, it started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race.